it's really a question about, does the party want to breathe air into democracy and allow other voices in? Does the party want to see a Western Canadian voice in the debates, in the engagement in terms of the issues across Canada? There are severe issues going on right now in Western Canada in terms of feelings of alienation and frustration around the energy sector, around the electoral structure in terms of representative power in Ottawa.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and I am joined by Grant Abram, leadership hopeful for the Conservative Party of Canada. He is one of a few candidates who were approved by the party, and they believed they had done everything right, dotted their I's, crossed their T's by the April 29th deadline, including getting their signatures in addition to getting all the funds deposited appropriately. To the best of their understanding, Mr. Bourgault, Mr. Etienne, and yourself, you believed you had done all these things right. Unfortunately, shortly after that, you were notified that you were ineligible, or at least they believed you hadn't met some of these criterias. From your perspective, or at least in your account, what is the party telling you, and what do you believe happened?
Sure. Well, my understanding from our own campaign donations is that we attained the $300,000. We submitted it. We received a letter on May 1st, which was Sunday night after the deadline of April 29th, to say that we had failed to attain the two requirements for financial contributions, not failed to attain the requirement for nominations, which was great. I was surprised at that, because if you fail to attain both financial requirements, it means that you had less than $200,000 into your campaign. I was quite sure we had over $300,000. So when I read that, I immediately began a conversation to find out exactly how much had come in and what the party had allocated to me in terms of determining the number to deny eligibility. So that started a conversation with the party. I waited approximately 4 days to get that number, 3 days till the 4th of May. I got that number, and that number was just under 250,000. And when I saw that, I realized that there was probably $50,000 plus missing. That became a very interesting conversation, because the posture of the party was that if there was a mistake, it was mine, and that I needed to be able to show them where that $52,000 was. And I said, well, basically my understanding of how much I have is based on my source documents that I received from each individual contributor to my campaign, plus your reports of what you received online, which is over 300,000. And that became then an exercise for me to prove to them that that money was actually brought in without access to their financial documents. Fortunately, I was able to do that. And I wrote a letter to them on May 7th and saying, I found your money. Perhaps we can find a way to proceed now. I set up a press conference on Monday, the 9th, yesterday. But just prior to that conference here in Calgary, I received a written communication from them basically saying that they found the money without using those words. They said, yeah, we recognize now that your campaign was over 300,000, but when we allocate all of the expenses, it's below. And I struggle with that, because in the framework of the rules that the party has itself, there are provisions within the Conservative Party rules which are quite fair if they're applied. And in that, there's one rule in particular, Rule 3.4.6, if you're a rule nerd, if you want to read that, it will allow the party to see that if someone comes in above 300,000 and then has their what's called ineligibility amounts reduced off, down, which I did because of maybe people made mistakes on checks or something like that. I went down by 30,000. There's scope for the party to say, well, we're going to give you a degree of time to fix that. Only when that measurement is made after the 29th of April, which is really important. And that is why the 300,000 mark is such a significant mark to get over. If you don't get over that 300,000, this rule 3.4.6 does not apply.
So then you're saying that if there was some sort of hiccup, even a 10% thing here or there, within the rules as they're laid out, the party could choose to say, oh, well, clearly this was a hiccup. You were following everything to the spirit of the letter of the law anyways. And there's some clear accommodations to be made here. You're saying the party's just deciding not to do that?
Well, they initially lost the money within their own books. I'm not going to say lost in that the money was missing. They misallocated the measurement of it, to be more accurate. They found it and then said, well, it doesn't matter because even though you came in over 300,000, you're now below it, and so you're out. And then for good measure, then they brought in a new requirement that indicated that I was now short on nominations when their initial letter didn't indicate that I was short on nominations. So why would a political party come out, 11 days later and say, oh, by the way, now you also have a nominations issue? There's clear communication from within the party that those numbers were verified on Sunday night, May 1st, to support the drafting of the letters to make people ineligible for nominations if they were going to be ineligible for nominations. That's verified in writing by Mr. Brody on May 3rd, that those amounts had been verified in his report to the leadership of the Conservative Party. So then to be able to come back and say now we're short of nominations is quite suspicious, and I can't necessarily go and look and check those verifications. I simply need to trust the party to do that. So there's the challenge. There's two issues raised.
Yeah.
There is. I guess my perspective is this. The party's probably overworked. They don't have enough staff. They felt as though they were severely pressed on the Sunday or that weekend to come to their conclusions. And I understand all those things, and I understand what it means to staff. Busy times, but there's a lot of money flowing around the organization, and I don't really accept those as excuses for mistakes personally. I think it's really a question about, does the party want to breathe air into democracy and allow other voices in? Does the party want to see a Western Canadian voice in the debates, in the engagement in terms of the issues across Canada? There are severe issues going on right now in Western Canada in terms of feelings of alienation and frustration around the energy sector, around the electoral structure in terms of representative power in Ottawa. And these kinds of things don't help that discussion. When that debate happens on Wednesday night, there will be 5 candidates from Ontario and 1 from Quebec. And the Western Canadians desire to be a part of this federation, but there's things like this don't help the Conservative Party of Canada look like they're being strategic in terms of engaging with the entire nation. And it's a big disconnect at the grassroots in Western Canada.
Well, we'll certainly follow up with you once you hear back from the party. Once there is some resolutions on this, I'll come out and speak with you again. Grant Abram, I want to thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today. And for everyone out there, to ensure that you're following all of the leadership coverage, whether it be the actual debates themselves or stories like these where people are potentially being excluded from the leadership, go to leadershipreports.ca. We're covering the race for the Conservative Party leadership like absolutely nobody else. Again, thanks so much for having me. And for everyone at home, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. We reached out to the party, who replied stating that they would provide us with a release shortly, which we will be sure to share once they have done so. Leadership Election Organizing Committee Executive Director Wayne Benson also agreed to speak with me at Edmonton's leadership debate to address the matter. Rebel News is very often the only news outlet with boots on the ground telling the stories about the Conservative leadership race that you want to hear and asking the questions that you need answers to make sure you don't miss a thing when it comes to the race for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Make sure you go to leadershipreports.ca.